Hi, Jonathan York from Bay Financial Partners, looking at the investment markets. Certainly never really a dull moment with President Trump around. We've got the Korean summit is now back on in Singapore next week, June the 12th. And again, just going to be very interesting to see how that sort of plays through. President Trump has now come out and said, look, doesn't really expect everything to get done in the first meeting. Could take 1, 2, 3, who knows how many meetings. But it is, it's a good sign that the meeting is going to take place. And it's now just going to be interesting really to see how keen both sides are to try and come up with some sort of agreement. On the other side, you've then got the China trade tariffs, and they're sort of back on, and looking sort of tit for tat. Also issued them against Europe as well, and I say it's going to be interesting to see how that sort of plays through, and whether we can actually get around to sort of the negotiating table and get some firm sort of trade deals in place. I think that's really what he's trying to angle for. Possibly he's going about it the wrong way, but time will tell. And obviously we've still got the ongoing Mueller investigation. In revelations this week coming out that President Trump apparently has the ability, being the president, to be able to pardon himself, which seems sort of a pretty bizarre sort of state of affairs. His lawyers then come out and said, well, no, look, that probably wouldn't be the right way because Congress would probably impeach him. But also he doesn't have to pardon himself for anything because he hasn't done anything wrong. Because if he hadn't done anything wrong, then it wouldn't be the investigation by Special Counsel Mueller in the first place. Really a whole lot of confusion out there. Maybe, his new personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, that's what he's trying to do, just create a lot of confusion, a lot of mist out there, and just trying to deflect some of the issues away. But back to markets, they're trading pretty well. Again, a very strong set of data coming out on the jobs front from the US. Also as well, there's talk that US companies potentially have about $2.5 trillion. That is a lot of zeros, 12 zeros, to be able to put back into the economy in terms of share buybacks, dividends, and M&A over the next sort of 12 months. That's a huge cash injection into the economy. With the US economy pushing on a pretty good rate, record low unemployment, reasonable growth as well. Obviously, the share market has taken a little bit of a boost on that, and Nasdaq closing at record highs. Other indices closing at sort of 10 and 12-week highs as well. Quite interesting. The US large cap stocks this year are up around sort of 7.4. The value shares are down around 3.2. So quite sort of interesting. Obviously, a lot of the big tech stocks, with the Nasdaq closing at record highs, really putting on some pretty good gains. Interesting though, oil hasn't quite got on the same page. Read the memo if you like. That's sort of trading down, $65 on WTI. Again, a little bit of talk about OPEC potentially increasing the supply quotas. The sort of political unrest in the Middle East hasn't really had too much impact at the moment. Just as a side issue on that, bubbling away, we've still got the Iran situation. Obviously, the US pulling out of that nuclear deal, and it's going to be interesting to see, one, how that sort of plays through over the next sort of 3 to 6 months. EU seems to have taken the new government in Italy in its stride. Potentially there's a new government in Spain as well, which, again, could pose some issues. And it's just going to be interesting, really to see how this sort of plays through over the sort of southern hemisphere summer. At present, the sort of anti-establishment government in Italy hasn't really caused too many waves, but still very early days. I think what the EU is really concerned about is that the new government in Italy will then put it to a referendum, and say, if that was their referendum on whether Italy should stay in the EU or not, I think it will be a pretty close vote. But again, in terms of economics and growth, Europe is sort of pushing on a pretty good rate. Still very little fresh news on Brexit, and that as we're sort of creeping into June now, potentially we need to get something on the table there by sort of September, October, and sort of agreed by the relative parliaments, so we can sort of go through into that sort of March 2019 exit date. In New Zealand, government coming up with a lot of new initiatives. Obviously, the big one for the economy and the sort of big unknown is this sort of Mycoplasma bovis, and their decision now to try and eradicate that. Again, it'll be pretty interesting because you're the first country to be able to do that, if it is the case. Put aside about $800 million to put that program in place. And it's just going to be interesting to see what sort of reaction we get over the next sort of 2 to 3 months, and whether they actually get any traction on that. Again, it really is a pretty big ask. It really is a pretty big ask to be able to eradicate that. So it's just going to be interesting to see how it sort of plays through. But again, the bigger picture, national herd is around 4.5 million cows. They're only talking about having to maybe cull about 150,000. Now, while that's not good news for the farm that actually have to cull their cows, I'd say in the bigger picture, it's not a huge percentage terms. Potentially a Meridian bond out there in the marketplace. 7 years. Coupon hasn't been announced yet, but looking at it, indication will probably be low fours somewhere. If you're interested in that, call us on 0800 867 323. Getting pretty close to the wire as well to be able to check in those KiwiSaver balances to make sure you're going to get the maximum tax credit. So if you're unsure on what those numbers should be, call us on 0800 867 323 or go to the website www.bayfinancialpartners.co.nz. Now, as always, if you're looking for income options, potentially providing a little bit higher than sort of TDs or the sort of current bond offerings, which I say, is around sort of 3.5 to 4.2-ish, and if you're lucky on a 7-year bond, call us on 0800 867 323 or go to the website www.bayfinancialpartners.co.nz for lots of interesting articles. We'll look forward to speaking to you soon.